Let me ask you something. What is the first thing you say to yourself every morning? Not what you think you should say, what you actually say. Most people, and I have stood in front of millions of people across this country and around the world, so I know this to be true. Most people wake up and the very first words they speak to themselves are negative. I'm tired. I don't want to do this today. I can't believe it's already time. Why does everything feel so hard? Those are the first words. Before the day has even begun. Before a single thing has happened. The first conversation of the day is already a losing conversation. And here is what I want you to understand before we go any further. That conversation, the one you have with yourself in the first 5 minutes of the morning, sets the temperature for everything that follows. Everything. And I am going to show you exactly how to change it. Before this talk is finished, I am going to give you 5 specific things, 5 sentences, that I want you to say to yourself every single morning before you do anything else. Not because they are magic words, not because saying them will change your life overnight, but because repeated, morning after morning, with intention and belief, these 5 sentences will change how you think. And when you change how you think, you change what you do. And when you change what you do, you change what you have. But before I give them to you, I need to tell you something about where they came from. Because these are not words I invented in a seminar room. These are words I arrived at through some of the hardest years of my life. Stay with me. I was 25 years old. I had a family, I had a job, I had a future that I had promised myself would look a certain way by now. And it did not look that way. I remember waking up one morning, and this is a specific memory, and the first thought that came to me before I even opened my eyes was this: nothing is working. 3 words. That was my morning conversation with myself. Nothing is working. I lay there for a moment and I thought, if I keep starting my days this way, where will I be in 10 years? And the honest answer that came back was, right here. Same bed, same fear, same 3 words. That morning I met a man named Earl Shoaff. He was one of the wealthiest and wisest men I had ever encountered. And he said something to me that I wrote down immediately and have never forgotten. He said, Jim, the conversation you have with yourself every morning is either building the foundation of your life or tearing it down. Most people are tearing it down before breakfast. Building or tearing down before breakfast. I want to ask you something right now. Which one are you doing? And I'll tell you what I did about it. Right after I explain why this matters more than any financial strategy, any business plan, any goal you have ever set, here is what I know about the human mind. It does not distinguish, in the first moments of waking, between reality and instruction. In those first 5 minutes of the morning, when you are moving from sleep to full consciousness, your mind is more open to instruction than at any other point in the day. Scientists have studied this. Philosophers have written about it for centuries. And the people who have built the most extraordinary lives I have ever witnessed have understood it instinctively. The first voice your mind hears in the morning is the most influential voice of the day. And for most people, that voice is saying, I am tired. I am behind. I am not enough. I am not ready. Now, you cannot always control what the world does to you during the day. The phone call that goes wrong. The plan that doesn't hold. The unexpected difficulty that arrives without invitation. You cannot control those things. But you can control the first 5 minutes. You can control what you say to yourself before the world has had a single chance to speak to you. And here is the cliffhanger. Here is the thing I want you to carry into the next few minutes of our conversation. The 5 things I am going to give you are not affirmations in the way most people understand affirmations. They are not feel-good phrases to repeat until you believe them. They are something more specific than that. More powerful than that. And the difference between what most people call affirmations and what I am about to give you is the difference between wishing and deciding. Let me explain that, and then I will give you the first one. Most people who try morning affirmations fail. Do you know why? Because they are saying things they do not believe yet. I am wealthy, when they are not. I am successful, when they don't feel it. I am confident, when the evidence around them says otherwise. And the mind, which is honest, whatever else it may be, rejects those statements. Not because the goal is wrong, but because the statement is not yet true, and the mind knows it. So instead of building belief, the affirmation creates an argument. The mind says, you said you are wealthy, but look at your bank account. You said you are confident, but look at how you handled that situation yesterday. This is why most people give up on morning routines within 2 weeks. Now, Here is the shift. The 5 things I am going to give you are not statements about what you already are. They are statements about what you are committed to, what you choose, what you are building toward. And the mind does not argue with a commitment the way it argues with a false claim. When you say, I am choosing today, the mind says, yes, that is accurate, that is true, that is happening right now in this moment. When you say, I am grateful for, the mind looks for evidence, and it finds it. Because gratitude is a search function, and it always finds what it is looking for. Are you following me? Good, because here is the first thing I want you to say every morning, and I want you to hear why before you hear what it is. The first thing to say every morning is this: today I choose to be better than yesterday. Not, I am perfect. Not, I have already arrived. Not, I am the best. Today I choose to be better than yesterday. Why those words specifically? Because they contain a comparison that your mind can verify. Yesterday is real. Yesterday happened. And today, whatever it brings, is a new chance to improve on it. When I was young and struggling, I could not honestly say I was successful. But I could say, and mean it, and believe it, that I was choosing to do better today than I did yesterday. That statement requires no external evidence. It requires only a decision. And a decision is something any person, in any circumstance, on any morning, can genuinely make. I want you to say it right now, not in your head, out loud. Today I choose to be better than yesterday. Say it like you mean it. Because if you mean it, if you genuinely commit to that one thing every single morning, I promise you that over the course of a year, the compounding effect of daily improvement will change your life beyond what you can currently imagine. But here is what most people do not know about this first statement. There is a second part to it that most people leave out. And without the second part, the first part loses half its power. And I will give you that second part, along with the second morning statement, right after I tell you something about the year that nearly broke me completely. The year was 1959. I was 29 years old, and I had nothing. Not a little. Nothing. I had made mistakes in my finances. I had trusted the wrong people. I had chased the wrong opportunities. I had a family depending on me, and I was failing them in the most basic, measurable way. I could not pay our bills. That year, a neighbor, a good man, a man who meant nothing wrong, asked me to donate to a cause he believed in. A small amount, a few dollars. And I had to tell him no. Not because I didn't want to give, because I didn't have it. That was the moment I decided something had to change. Not in my circumstances, in me. Because I understood, sitting in that moment of quiet humiliation, that my circumstances were a reflection of who I was, not the cause of who I was. If I wanted different results, I had to become a different person. And the becoming started in the morning, with the first words I said to myself before the world began. Are you in a situation right now where something needs to change? Not your job, not your relationship, not your bank account. You. Because if you are, then what I am about to give you in the next few minutes is the beginning of that change. Here is the second part of the first morning statement, and then the second statement itself. The complete first statement is this: today I choose to be better than yesterday, and I know specifically how. And I know specifically how. That addition changes everything. Because choosing to be better is intention. Knowing specifically how is a plan. And intention without a plan is just a wish. So when you say this every morning, you must also know, specifically, one thing you are going to do differently today than you did yesterday. One conversation you will handle better. 1 hour you will use more wisely. One decision you will make with more care. Just one. That is all it takes. One specific better choice per day. Are you writing this down? Because I want you to carry this with you. Now, the second thing to say every morning. I am grateful for what I already have. Say it. And then, and this is the critical part, finish the sentence. Grateful for what, specifically? Not grateful in general. The mind does not respond to vague gratitude. The mind responds to specific gratitude. Named gratitude. Detailed gratitude. I am grateful for my health this morning. I am grateful for the people who count on me. I am grateful that I woke up with another chance to get this right. When you name what you are grateful for, specifically, out loud, in the first 5 minutes of your morning, something extraordinary happens. Your mind shifts its focus. And focus determines everything. Here is what I mean by that. And this will take us directly to the third morning statement, which is the one most people have never heard before and which I believe is the most important of all 5. Let me ask you a question. Have you ever noticed that when you are looking to buy a specific car, let's say a blue sedan, you suddenly start seeing blue sedans everywhere? They were always there. The road did not suddenly fill with blue sedans because you decided to buy one. They were there before. You simply did not notice them because you were not looking for them. This is how the human mind works with focus. What you look for, you find. What you focus on, you see more of. What you name in the morning, you notice throughout the day. This is why specific gratitude in the morning is not a spiritual exercise. It is a practical tool. It trains your mind to look for evidence of abundance rather than evidence of lack. And by the end of the day, if you started the morning looking for abundance, you will have noticed things you would otherwise have missed. Opportunities, connections, resources, moments. They were always there, you just were not looking for them. Now, the third thing to say every morning, and I want you to hear this one very carefully. My word is worth something today. My word is worth something today. What does that mean? It means this. Every commitment I make today, I will honor. Every promise I give, I will keep. Every standard I set for myself, I will hold. Because here is what I know about trust. After a lifetime of studying success and failure, the most successful people I have ever known are not always the smartest. They are not always the most talented. They did not always have the most advantages. But without exception, without a single exception, they were people whose word was worth something. To others, yes. But more importantly, to themselves. Because when you break a promise to someone else, you damage a relationship. When you break a promise to yourself, you damage your own belief in your capacity to change. And that damage compounds. Just like wealth compounds. Just like good habits compound. But in the wrong direction. Every morning when you say, my word is worth something today, you are recommitting to the agreement you have with yourself. You are repairing any damage from yesterday. You are starting fresh. And here is what no one tells you about this. The mornings when you most do not want to say it. When you know you broke a commitment yesterday. When you know you fell short. When the evidence of your inconsistency is fresh and uncomfortable. Those are the most important mornings to say it anyway. Because that is the morning when you decide whether the pattern continues or stops. Which brings me to the fourth statement. And before I give it to you, I need to tell you something about the moment I almost quit entirely. There was a period in my life. This was after I had already achieved some measure of success, after the early struggles had passed, when I started to believe I had done enough. I had built something. I had earned something. I had a right to rest on it. And I did rest on it, for almost 2 years. Do you know what happened? Everything I had built started to erode, not dramatically, not in a single catastrophe. Slowly, quietly, the way a garden overgrows when you stop tending it. My discipline softened, my edge dulled, my hunger, that specific, motivating hunger that had driven me through the hard early years, went quiet. And I did not notice it happening until one morning I woke up and realized I had not grown in 2 years, not financially, not philosophically, not as a person. And that realization, that I had traded growth for comfort and ended up with neither, was one of the most important lessons of my life. The fourth thing to say every morning is this: I am still learning. I am still learning, 3 words. But they carry a philosophy that separates the people who keep growing from the people who stop. When you say, I am still learning, you are acknowledging that you do not have all the answers. That today will teach you something if you are willing to be taught. That the person next to you, however unlikely it seems, may know something you do not. This is what the great philosopher Epictetus understood when he said, "It is impossible for a man to learn what he thinks he already knows." Think about that. It is impossible to learn what you think you already know. The moment you stop saying, I am still learning, is the moment you close the door to new ideas, new approaches, new solutions to old problems. And here is the specific question I want you to ask yourself right now. What did you learn yesterday? Not generally, specifically. What did yesterday teach you that you did not know the day before? If the answer is nothing, then the morning statement is even more urgent. Because a day that teaches you nothing is a day you cannot get back. Say it every morning, I am still learning, and then spend the day proving it true. Which brings us to the fifth and final morning statement. And I have saved this one for last, because it is the one that holds all the others together. Let me ask you this. What do you want? Not what you think you can have, not what seems realistic, not what your circumstances say is available to you. What do you actually want? Most people cannot answer that question clearly, not because they have no desires. Everyone has desires, but because they have never sat with the question long enough to get specific. I want to be comfortable. I want to be secure. I want things to be easier. Those are not answers. Those are feelings. And you cannot build a life around a feeling the way you can build it around a specific, named, clearly imagined goal. The fifth thing to say every morning is this: today I move toward what I want. And then, finish the sentence. Today I move toward what I want. Which is this. Name it. Say it out loud. Make it specific. Make it real in the air of the room before you have done anything else. Because here is what happens when you name your destination every morning. The day organizes itself differently. Not because the universe rearranges itself in response to your declaration, but because you do, when you know where you are going. Specifically, named, spoken aloud. The decisions of the day become clearer. This opportunity moves me toward it. That distraction moves me away from it. This conversation is worth having. That one is not. The named goal is a filter. And a filter is one of the most powerful tools a person can carry through the day. So let me bring it all together. 5 things. Every morning, before you do anything else, say them out loud. Not in your head, not whispered. Spoken with the voice you use when you mean something. The first. Today I choose to be better than yesterday, and I know specifically how. The second. I am grateful for. And name it. Specifically. Out loud. The third. My word is worth something today. The fourth. I am still learning. The fifth. Today I move toward what I want, which is, and name it, your goal, your destination, your specific, clearly imagined future. 5 sentences. 3 to 5 minutes of your morning. That is all it takes. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. You are thinking, I have heard things like this before. I have tried morning routines before. I have made commitments before, and they did not hold. And I want to address that directly. They did not hold because you treated them as an experiment, something to try and see if it works before fully committing, a practice with an escape clause. What I am asking you to do is different. I am asking you to commit before you see the results. To say these 5 things every morning for 90 days. Not because you feel like it, not because the results are visible yet, not because it is easy, but because you have decided that this is who you are going to be. Because here is the truth about every lasting change in human behavior. It does not begin with results. It begins with identity. The person who commits to saying these 5 things every morning for 90 days is a different person than the one who decides to try it and see. Not because the words are different, because the decision is different. And that different decision, made once, clearly, out loud, before the world begins, is the beginning of a different life. I want to leave you with one final thought. Jim Rohn has said this in many rooms over many years, and I will say it here one more time because it is as true today as the first time I understood it. Your life does not get better by chance. It gets better by change. And change does not begin out there in the world. It begins in here, in the conversation you have with yourself before anyone else has had a chance to speak to you. 5 things, every morning, before you do anything. That is where the change begins. Not someday. Tomorrow morning, before you do anything. Thank you.